How's your own training going? I wanted to ask you before we actually get going on the questions and answers, because you have been working so hard recently.
I have. I was in A&E a couple of weeks ago. So I've got since we last spoke, I've had an MRI for my back, and turns out I've got an L5S1 disc herniation. And I was in A&E because I lost sensation and had paresthesia down the left side of my left leg, matching the nerve distribution of that disc.
Right. Well, that's a very, very strong correlation, isn't it? That suggests a cause.
A bit worrying, but there was no motor loss, just sensory. So
Right.
they discharged me, but they said if it gets any worse, then come back. So I've had to adapt my training around that stuff at the minute. Still suffering from some sciatica.
Well, if it's any consolation to you, and you've seen how well I can move, I am absolutely certain there's pathology in my system as well. But because I've kept on doing all the things that we're recommending to our listeners and viewers, in fact, my flexibility now is actually better than it was 15 years ago. And my strength, I've been deadlifting again, remaining in deadlift is my preferred deadlift. And just by taking it easy and increasing the loads slowly and doing a fair amount of, I would call it modest intensity volume, everything seems to be excellent.
That is
But
fantastic. Your
the thing
methods
that,
do work very well for back pain as well. I mean,
yes,
I did my sciatica kind of flared up yesterday, and I did a few of the stretches from your book. And for anyone listening, there's a flow chart of self-assessment that you can do to figure out what your specific limitations are, and you stretch through them. And I've recommended the book and the series of videos for back pain to multiple clients, and every one of them has cleared up their pain by doing the stretches in there.
Yusuf, what our medical system, and I mean you're part of it too now, of course, what our medical system really does not understand at a deep level is that the system that we've inherited from our evolutionary past is an immensely effective adaptation machine. Yusuf, I'm just not sure that our audience realizes just the extent to which one's adaptive capacities can be gently brought to bear on a problem like the one you've just described. I mean, for most people, the idea of a bulging L5S1 disc is, can be the kiss of death, but it's not real. The system we live in has immense redundancy built in, and of course, when you only look at an MRI that shows a bulging disc and you can see that bulge is impinging on a nerve, it's not a big move to understand or to feel very strongly that that's actually the cause of your problem. But the whole disc vertebral structure is only one part of an extremely complex system which has many ways of adapting to that particular problem. Now, the two things that the audience should know, firstly, is that you've got a bulging disc, not an extruding disc, and so that's nowhere near as serious a problem. But a bulging disc still can press on an exiting segmental nerve, and it still can create that paresthesia that you described before, that numbness of the surface of the skin. And of course, if the symptoms get severe enough, it can also cause all sorts of neurological deficits, as they're called, as of course you know, which are things like inability to dorsiflex, or complete loss of feeling, or complete loss of action in a muscle, etc., etc. But as you know, if you survive the first 6 months of even a full-blown disc extrusion event, and there, I should say as an aside, there are two mechanisms here that cause all the pain and discomfort. One is that the freshly exiting disc material itself is a chemical irritant to the nerve sheath, but that process actually resolves itself relatively quickly, somewhere between 3 and 6 months. And this is why we say if you can walk around, even if it's uncomfortable to do, even if you're in pain doing it, you must continue to move, and you must try increasing that movement envelope on a regular basis. And the chances are, and certainly the statistics support this very strongly, the chances are if you make it through that 6-month period, you're on the road to full recovery. And the second thing is that the exiting disc material also has a mechanical effect on the nerve sheath. So there are two separate effects. The chemical one is resolved relatively quickly, and the second one, the actual physical pressure of the exiting disc material on the segmental nerve, that will cause downstream pain or sensation or loss of function somewhere downstream of where the impingement occurs, as you know. But even that will alter over time, providing you keep moving, and the reason is that disc material is resorbed into the body. but you have to use and create the movement and the physical forces against that extrusion for that to occur. If you lie down and do nothing, absolutely there's no force on the system, absolutely nothing will change.
I suppose there's a cascade of other effects as well, where you create more guarding, more threat perception, more of the kind of the psychosocial loop of movement is bad, and when I do move, it causes me pain, and
it hurts,
and all of it spirals off.
Yeah,
and we've actually got quite
does.
a lot of questions about back pain.
Okay,
from the
let you
readers,
get into it. I'll stop. Let's get straight into it.